What's up, cheeseheads? As always, thank you for joining me. My name is Paul Brettel. I'm the site editor over at Dailyland Express, where we cover the Packers, Brewers, Bucks, and Badgers. I also have a new article out every Monday and Friday over at Cheesehead TV, and you can find me on Twitter, as it says at the bottom of the screen, at Paul_Brettel. For those of you who tune in regularly, you'll notice that my background is a little bit different. We got some renovations going on. Typically, I have my Aaron Rodgers, Bart Starr, Brett Favre photos up, and those will be back. But right now, my lovely wife is helping me Packerize this area a little bit more. So we got the yellow stripe going across. I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, but on the top and bottom of the yellow stripe, smaller version, we got white. And then on top of that and on the bottom of that, we're going to have green. And then, of course, like I said, those photos will be back up. So I'm hoping by the next time I record one of these videos that it will be complete and we will have like I said, a very Packerized backdrop for you guys. For today's episode, what I wanted to discuss was a few items that came in over the weekend because training camp's almost here and the news is ramping up. We've survived. We've made it through the deadest of dead periods here in the NFL season off season between mini camp and when training camp begins. And from Friday really through most of Saturday, there was a lot of news that came through in regards to the Green Bay Packers. Some rumors, some news, some Instagram stories, but I want to touch on three of those topics in particular. The first, Devonte Adams and the breakdown in negotiations between him and the Green Bay Packers. I also wanted to touch on Zadaria Smith and then the Green Bay Packers' decision to put Patrick Taylor on the PUP list and what that could mean for the running back position this summer. But first, let's start with the big one. Devonte Adams, as I'm sure you are well aware, Ian Rappaport of NFL Network reported that the Green Bay Packers and Devonte Adams had broken off contract extension talks, and in his words, not mine, said that they were in a bad place. So before I get to my main point around this, I will say that just because talks have broken off doesn't mean that they won't resume. It doesn't mean that an extension can't be reached at some point. I mean, look at Aaron Jones last year. Him and the Green Bay Packers were on and off with discussions. He rejected their offer. I mean, there was a lot that went on there over the course of the year, but ultimately the Green Bay Packers re-signed him. Now, that doesn't mean the same thing's going to happen with Devonte Adams, but I also don't think that here we are on, as I'm recording this, July 25th, that we got to sit here and hit the panic button because Devonte Adams is gone. For one thing, free agency, mid-March of 2022, that's a long ways away. A lot can happen, and I imagine, just me speculating, but I imagine that the Green Bay Packers and Devonte Adams are going to talk again at some point about a new deal. And if you're looking for some positive in all this, it's that, as Rappaport said, for a few months now, the Packers and Adams have been in negotiations, which should show us that Adams is willing to come back. Now, it has to be at the right dollar amount, but that's the case with every player. And it also shows us that while he mentioned that Aaron Rodgers' future could play a role in his decision, it also shows that he's willing to come here around that uncertainty and knowing that Rodgers might not be back, or these negotiations or these talks that went on for a few months never would have happened. So I at least wanted to touch on that because it's way, way, way too early to sit here and hit the panic button. We just don't know enough yet. Now, what I wanted to discuss is the chasm or the biggest hurdle and why contract negotiations were broken off. Now, as is the case with anything, there's always more than one factor in play. Very rarely in anything in life, but especially football, can we point at one specific thing and say, that's why this is happening. But I believe what I'm about to discuss is absolutely the biggest reason. Devonte Adams wants to be paid like the highest or the best receiver in football. He wants to be the highest paid wide receiver in football, and he absolutely deserves to be. He had nearly 1,400 yards last year, all-pro, 18 touchdowns, averaged almost 100 receiving yards a game, and he did that while missing 2 games. He has off the line of scrimmage, he's basically unguardable, and many around the NFL consider him the best receiver in the game, and he deserves to be compensated as such. The Green Bay Packers have had him on an absolute team-friendly deal for 4 years now. Devonte is averaging on his current deal $14.5 million per year, which makes him the 18th highest paid receiver in the game. He's looking for that pay increase. He absolutely deserves it, as I said, and that's where the issue lies. Deandre Hopkins of the Arizona Cardinals, his deal went so far above and beyond the second highest paid wide receiver that now it's causing issues for the Packers and Devonte Adams. DeAndre Hopkins is making $27.25 million per year. The second highest paid wide receiver is Julio Jones, now the Tennessee Titans, and his $22 million per year. So Hopkins is getting over $5 million more per year than Julio Jones. Had Hopkins deal, his extension that he signed with Arizona, been more in line with Hopkins, maybe we're not running into this issue. I mean, maybe we are. This is all just speculation and we don't know. It's a scenario that isn't going to play out because it just didn't happen. But maybe at $23 million per year, maybe that's more manageable, or we know it's more manageable, but maybe that's the difference between Green Bay at this point saying we can't do that versus we can. So you can thank DeAndre Hopkins and the Arizona Cardinals for this one. But another factor that's hurting Green Bay with all of this is last year with David Bakhtiari, they ran into a very, very similar situation. And they made, as we know, David Bakhtiari the highest paid tackle in football. So before that happened, the Houston Texans and Laramie Tunsil agreed to a contract extension that on average pays him $22 million per year. Like the Andre Hopkins deal, that was well above what the second highest paid tackle in football was earning. But Green Bay, they came back and they made David Bakhtiari the highest paid tackle in the game, around $23 million per year. I guarantee you Devonte Adams and his agent took notice to that, and I'm sure it's come up in discussions saying, well, you were in a similar situation last year and you made David Bakhtiari the highest paid tackle. Well, we want the same treatment and we think that we deserve it. So the Green Bay Packers, whether they set the precedent, I don't know if that's too strong of a term to describe this right now, but in a way they did, because what Laramie Tunsil got compared to the second highest paid tackle and what DeAndre Hopkins got compared to Julio Jones, the second highest paid receiver, it's a very similar situation in that there was a big gap, much bigger than what anyone anticipated, and it really reset the wide receiver market. And now teams who have that very top flight, high echelon of receiver, they're having to pay for it in a way, literally and figuratively. So Devonte, his agent, are absolutely looking at Bakhtiari's deal and saying, well, you did it for him. We want the same treatment. So, like I said, we can thank DeAndre Hopkins and the Arizona Cardinals for resetting this wide receiver market and making these negotiations more difficult for the Green Bay Packers. And like I said, Adams absolutely deserves it. I hope that he comes back, because when you think about who knows what's happening with Aaron Rodgers, but if Jordan Love's the quarterback, why wouldn't you? You absolutely would want Davante Adams there as a safety blanket for him. What a great weapon for a young, inexperienced quarterback to have. So we'll see what happens. Like I said initially, there's a long ways to go with these negotiations, and just because they're broken off now doesn't mean that they won't or can't resume either. Like I said, let's stay away from the panic button. But it's important to know what's causing these issues, and it's DeAndre Hopkins' massive deal, which is well above the second highest paid receiver in football. Now, we're going to stick with this contract and cap space and money theme when we talk about Zadaria Smith. So Zadaria Smith, I'm sure you heard the reports from Mike Florio of Pro Football Network. Take those as you will. I'll leave it at that he is unhappy. Those were Mike's words, unhappy with his current deal. And I imagine he is. We know that he and the Green Bay Packers engaged in contract extension talks earlier in this offseason, but they were unable to come to a deal. So what a contract extension does is the obvious. It keeps him in Green Bay beyond the 2022 season, which is the last year of his current deal. But it also lowers his cap hit this year. They would have taken a portion of his base salary and or signing bonus, converted it to or roster bonus, converted it to a signing bonus, and spread that out over the life of the deal. But they were unable to come to an agreement. So instead, Green Bay restructured it, added voided years, which they did with a number of other contracts this year. Adrian Amos, Billy Turner, Mason Crosby, there were others. And what the voided years are, on paper, they're extra years added to the contract, but they're really fake. It's basically for accounting. It's a way for the team to push extra cap to future years that don't exist on the contract. But then when the contract ends, those extra years, those fake years, it all comes due at that point, and those cap charges have to be recognized. So it's a very much in the now, in the present, hey, we're desperate, we need cap space, which the Green Bay Packers absolutely were, but it's not an extension, not an extension whatsoever. It's a way to get by for the moment and kick the can down the road, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So by doing that, they created the $7 million in cap space that they greatly needed, which is good for 2021. But those cap charges get pushed to future years, and I know it can be forgotten about, but those cap charges have to come due at some point. And next year, in part because Zadaria Smith was paid well on his free agent contract, but also because of those additional cap charges pushed to 2022 and beyond, his cap hit next year is over $28 million. I will tell you right now, I guarantee that the Green Bay Packers have zero intention of playing Zadaria Smith in 2022 on that current deal. They are not going to have Zadaria Smith on the field with a $28 million cap hit. There is zero chance. So that leaves them with two options, or I guess three. One, they can extend them, which, again, similar to the Devonte Adams situation, maybe that's in the works right now. We have no idea. We know that they were talking about it before. Maybe they were in talks now, because these type of deals, they take a while. This stuff just doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot of back and forth. Green Bay has to factor in, all the other moves that they plan on making. Aaron Rodgers is a big unknown. So there's a lot of moving parts with this. So it does take time, and maybe that's where they're at right now. Or on the other side, maybe they want to see how this season plays out. As good as Zadaria Smith has been these last 2 years, the beginning of the 2022 season, he is going to be 30. Maybe they don't necessarily at this point want to sign him to that extension, knowing that he is going to be 30, adding 2-3 years onto that. Maybe they want to see what happens this year before making that final move. Or, and I don't think this is an option, but I'll bring it up, maybe they've already made the decision that they're just going to move on, because as you can tell from how this offseason went, 2021 is very much an all-in for the Green Bay Packers, and next year there's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of roster moves, and perhaps Zadaria Smith is going to be one of them. We don't know. But regardless of what it is, Zadaria Smith doesn't have an extension at this point, but he needs one. As I said when we started this topic, an extension adds years to the deal, but it also lowers the cap hit in that specific season. So it depends on how it's structured, so I don't really have a number in mind for you. But that it isn't going to be a $28 million cap hit in 2022 if they extend them at that time. So that's option one, extend them, keep him here, lower his cap hit. Option two, cut him, because you can't restructure his deal. 2022 is the last year. There's no other years to push cap charges to. So they either have to cut him, or if they feel that they can get something worthwhile via trade, that's an option as well. But it really boils down to the Green Bay Packers are either going to extend Zadaria Smith, or this is his last season here. It's really that simple. It's that cut and dry. And I know that can be tough to hear, frustrating to hear, given everything with Devonte Adams, Aaron Rodgers, but it's the truth. This very well could be Zadaria Smith's last season, because, like I said, he is not playing on a $28 million cap charge. The Green Bay Packers aren't going to do that. Now on to the last topic, and that is that Patrick Taylor, running back, has been placed on the physically unable to perform list. So what that is it's a football injury, and he can return at any time from it. So that's really the big unknown in this. We don't know how severe it is. Is he going to miss the first week of training camp, first 2 weeks? Is he going to be out for an extended period of time? That's the unknown from our vantage point at this time. But what that means for Green Bay is that they now only have 4 healthy running backs on the roster: Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Dexter Williams, and Kylan Hill. They're very, very likely not going to be able to get through training camp without at least an additional running back. One, there's a lot of reps that go around. I mean, these are 90-man rosters. There's a lot of reps and snaps that happen during those practice periods. And also, once we get to the preseason games, we're not going to see a lot of Aaron Jones. We'll probably see more of A.J. Dillon, but still not a ton, because he is expected to he's going to be the number 2 back in this offense this year. So that leaves Green Bay leaning on in preseason games Kylan Hill and Dexter Williams for a bulk of the snaps. Again, you would like to have someone additional to lean on in that situation, just to spare those guys, honestly, give them some breaks, take some reps off of them, minimize the injury risk. So don't expect Green Bay to go out and sign, I know Todd Gurley's out there, Adrian Peterson, Duke Johnson. I can't envision whatsoever that they're going to go out and get one of those guys, because they don't need a third running back who's going to come in and demand, need a bulk of the carries, or even a third of the carries with Jones and Dillon. Those two are going to be your workhorses. The type of running back that they need would be like Kylan Hill, Dexter Williams, someone who's available in case an injury happens, but really their job is there to spell those guys, give them some breaks here and there. So it's going to be a cheap deal. It's going to be someone who honestly may not even make the 53-man roster. He may be cut. Now, he may not even make the practice squad, because really what they just need bodies to help get through training camp and the preseason. So in the coming days, a lot of teams are having tryouts. The Green Bay Packers already had a few players in over the weekend on tryouts. Don't be surprised whatsoever if you see a running back or two coming into training camp to try out for the team, because they absolutely need the bodies at this point. And with them being at the full 90-man roster capacity, because Taylor's on PUP, he still counts towards the 90-man roster. Anyone that they do sign, a cut's going to have to follow to make sure that they stay at that maximum amount. One other point that I want to add on Taylor is that he's someone that I was really, really excited about to see this summer. And like I said, maybe we still do. We don't know the extent of the injury. But coming out of Memphis, he was a very effective ball carrier, effective in the passing game as a pass catcher, and a willing blocker in pass protection. I mean, those three things right there are the calling card for being a running back in this Matt LaFleur offense. And I know he missed really all of 2020 with a foot injury that he had suffered during his college season. But don't discount just the being around the team, absorbing the playbook, learning his responsibilities. I mean, that's a really, really valuable thing, especially in the Matt LaFleur offense, which we know can be complicated, especially for the running backs involved in what all their responsibilities are. So don't discount that. In addition, because I know Kylan Hill is grabbing a lot of the headlines, and running back 3 is wide open at this point. And maybe that's his job for the taking. If he's running back 3, I'm not going to be surprised whatsoever. He has a very similar skill set in that well-rounded nature, similar to Taylor, that fits this offense. So I think he's a very good fit, and I think he has a tremendous opportunity in front of him to claim that job. But I thought Taylor did as well. So we'll have to see when he returns, if he can do enough in that limited capacity to show that he's worthy of a roster spot. That's just all up in the air, but I did want to at least acknowledge that he's someone to keep our eyes on when he does return, because he's a really, really good fit for this offense. And 2020 was a redshirt year for him, but we can't discount that just being around the team in the offense and what that means compared to a rookie player like Kylan Hill. So those are my big 3 topics I wanted to discuss. Devonte Adams, Zadaria Smith, and Green Bay is probably going to be looking for a running back here in the next week or so. So until next time, friends, and I will probably have a video out again in a few days. I am going to attend the first day of training camp. So I'm going to have an article out at over at Dairyland Express, going through just my takeaways, thoughts, everything that I saw there. And then I plan to also record and put out a video with those observations as well. This is my favorite time of the year. I'm fortunate to live in the area. Absolutely love going to practices. Have done it since I was a kid. Absolutely love it. And I'm just even more so excited this year, one, because we didn't get to last year due to COVID, but also with all the drama this offseason, I can't wait to just watch football and talk about real football and not all this off the field stuff. So until next time, and like I said, keep your eyes open for that. Take care, stay safe, and as always, go Pack Go.